If a pawn gets downed, instead of instantly going to revive them, you can wait for one of the other pawns to bring them over to you, or you can actually go in, grab the pawn, run back out, place them down, and then revive them to make sure that you don't get hit by the enemy. Augments can be transferred and equipped between vocations. So for example, the Vitality augment comes from the Warrior class, and the Endurance augment comes from the Hunter class, and I can equip them on any class, taking advantage of different augments from different vocations. Core skills, however, are specific to that specific vocation, and you cannot transfer these between vocations. Pawns can actually boost you up. So for this example, I have the boost skill on my warrior, and anytime I use it, the pawn runs over to me, and then I can straight up just throw them on top of the enemy. Or if I want to get a chest, then I can vault my pawn up towards that chest, and then they can get it for me. If you recruit a pawn that has that skill, then you should be able to use it off that pawn. Pawns will also carry you or catch you if you're falling down and near them, and that helps you avoid fall damage. If you're stuck on a quest, you can go visit the Oracle, and it's right here in Vermont, and for 50 gold they'll sort of guide you and tell you what you can do next to progress the story quest. A hand icon next to a quest indicates that a pawn has knowledge of that quest. If the color is blue, that means your main pawn has the information, and if the color is red or brownish, it means that there's a pawn in the party that knows that quest. If there's an hourglass next to the quest, it means it's a timed quest and you have a limited amount of time to finish it. You can use in-save or resting at a bed in your house as a backup save in case you mess up. So suppose you get a timed quest or you get a quest that you're not too sure what to do on, you can make an in-save, and if you mess up on the quest or for whatever reason you don't complete it in time, you can reload that in-save and give it another go. If you're unable to transfer the character that you created in the character creator, make sure you have Cloud Sync turned on, otherwise you will not be able to transfer the data. DLSS can make the game blurry. It gives a bit more boost to your frame rates, but overall it makes the game look a lot more blurry. Make sure to approach NPCs and talk to them. I've noticed that not all NPCs with quests will come up to you and approach you. Some will, but most won't, and it's important to talk to as many NPCs as you come across to make sure you don't miss out on any quests. Resting at a bed or an inn updates the pawn quest, and it also updates you on if your pawn has been hired and whatnot. So it's important to rest at an inn or your bed to make sure your pawn gets updated. So if your pawn leveled up, that will be updated to the servers, and people hiring them will then hire them at their current level. So for example, if you made a pawn quest and your pawn was level 15 and now your pawn is level 18, the game will still show your pawn is level 15 to other players unless you rest at an inn or in your bed. When you do a pawn quest, so for example, if you do the quest of kill a Cyclops for 10,000 gold, the game will only take 10,000 gold from you once. So suppose I made a pawn quest and 10 people complete it, and then I go to an inn and I sleep there. Then when the pawn quest updates, I will be charged 10,000 even though 10 people used it. If you want your pawns to stop attacking an enemy, or you want to solo it, or you only want support from your pawns, you can use the wake command and it'll stop the pawns from attacking the enemy, and you can pretty much solo that monster or kill it a specific way if you need to. Make sure to give your pawns restoring items, as they can use that mid-battle. So for example, the healing potion, if your pawns get low on HP, they will be able to use it on their own. So you can grab and pull the legs of certain creatures such as Cyclops and Ogres when they get staggered, or when you see them standing on one leg, you can grab the leg that they're standing on and pull on it to make them fall down. And once the creature falls down, you have a huge window to deal damage. Once they're down on the ground, you can also walk up to their head and press the Y key or whatever your heavy attack is, and it will do a sort of a finisher or a final blow to the target. Normal attacks do not consume stamina, so make sure to spam them as much as possible in between skills. Skills will take up stamina. When you're playing as a hunter, do not forget about your kick skill or your kick attack, which is tied to Y, and you can also dodge back by jumping and then pressing the kick key to vault backwards. Personally, I think it's always important to manual aim and manually shoot as a hunter or as an archer, and you want to spam your shots as much as possible and always try to aim for the head. If you hit the head, you get a special sound, and that indicates that you critically hit the target. Jump attacks are OP. You can press jump in X or jump in Y, and they come in pretty clutch. If a pawn says, oh look, there's a ladder here, or look, there's a chest here, it'll actually mark a exclamation mark on your mini map, and then you can go ahead and follow that. Also, if your pawn mentions something, you can press the go command instantly, and it should make the pawn take lead and show you where the item or object is. All items that are picked up by the pawn, except for the items that you equip onto them, so for example weapons and armor, get automatically sent to your storage chest when the pawn dies or gets dismissed. So if you're dismissing a pawn, The only thing you have to make sure for is to remove any armor or weapon that you equipped onto them. So if your pawn is holding a campfire kit, you can use that kit to set up campfires, regardless of whether the kit is in your inventory or not. As long as your pawn has it, you will be able to use it. So for your main pawn, you can change their vocation, but also importantly, make sure you give them more spells. Initially, they'll only have one spell, and you want to go to a vocation guild and equip them with more spells, more passives, and more core skills and more augments. Every class has its version of a dodge move. It's not exactly a dodge, but it's a dodge equivalent. So for the hunter, you have the leaping punt. So as a hunter, if you run up to an enemy and you jump kick, which is A and Y on the Xbox controller, you'll do a jump attack and dodge backwards. For the fighter class, the dodge equivalent is blocking with a shield, and you can also deflect with a shield if you time it perfectly. For the mage class, your dodge equivalent is the palladium, which blocks up to 3 attacks. For the thief class, you straight up have a dodge or dash tied to the right bumper. For the warrior class, what you have is a shoulder charge or a little shoulder bash tied to the right bumper, and so on and so forth. So if you start getting heavy, you can go into your menu and then go into items or equipment and then press the right trigger or the left trigger to switch over to the pawn, and then you can go into their inventory and either take the item from them, or if you're too heavy, then you can go into your items, organize them by the weight highest, and then for example this cloak, if I give it to Raven, and then it transfers over to Raven. If you hold the left bumper, it brings up the little menu or your belts on the bottom left. Top on the D-pad is for healing, bottom on the D-pad is for stamina items, and then the right is for your lantern. And if you press the left key, it instantly takes you to the item menu. So instead of having to pause and go into your inventory to use a healing potion every time, you can just press the left bumper and then press up. So if you're short on wakestones or want to farm wakestones, come over to a rift stone and then go over to the pawns and the rifts, and then press the right bumper to switch over to specialization and quest, and then you can scroll down. Most of them right now are defeat a cyclops and whatnot. It's a little more difficult to find at higher levels, but at lower levels, you can come across the one where it says spend day and night with the pawn to get a wakestone shard. And then once you have 2 pawns with that quest, you can come on down to this bench right here, sit down here, and then keep pressing doze off for a little bit. So doze off, and then you can chain it into another doze off by spamming the Y button. And then after you pass a day and a night, it should update those pawn quests and you'll get 2 wakestone shards. And then you can go back, dismiss those pawns, and then rinse and repeat and just farm as many wakestones as you want. Certain enemies like griffins and cyclopses, once you get on top of them, like their shoulder or their back, you can stand on them without having to grab them, and that does not consume any stamina. And a lot of times you can just chill on top of them until they start going berserk and try to knock you off. And I ended up fighting this griffin. I don't know if I was at the right level or not, but after a long time, I actually took it down, so it's pretty good. If you're on the warrior vocation, one of the biggest things you can do is climb onto an enemy. If you get to the head, that's even better. That's like a bonus. And then you press the heavy attack, or for me that's the Y attack, and the warrior jumps off and does a huge slam down. And if you hit the head, more often than not, it's an instant stagger. For griffins, they have this move where they fly up into the air and do something. If you're on the griffin as it's doing that and you do the Y attack, it'll slam down and it'll instantly stun the griffin. Pretty OP. You can chop off body parts of enemies like the tail for this example and get loot from that severed body part. Use your environment to its full advantage, for example throwing boulders at enemies. You can use magic spells as a non-mage by using grimoires, for example the healing bubble, or coating your weapon with ice or fire or lightning. An easy way to get the Cyclops abridged achievement is to get thrown in the water, and when you teleport back up to the Cyclops, for some reason they'll be downed on the bridge, and then you could just cross over. You can break bridges and then use them as ladders to get up or down. The menu has a sundial, which you can use to keep track of the time. If you have 2 mages, whether it's 2 mages, 2 sorcerers, or a mix of both, you can use spell sync to reduce the casting time and deal more damage. It'll automatically happen. Items won't spoil when stored in the storage. You can give certain NPCs gifts when interacting with them to deepen your bond with them.